What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Today we are doing more One Piece, but first of all, thank you guys. I love the One Piece community. Y'all are just absolutely awesome. Thank you so much for just welcoming me on this journey as I'm going through it, like giving me all suggestions, hyping me up, and like coming along for the ride as I experience One Piece for the first time. Thank y'all so much for all the support. It means the world to me, and I'm so excited to continue One Piece. I am loving it so far, and honestly, like Oda inspires me to be better, as a writer or as a reader, as a viewer of like what I consume media wise. I'm really excited to hop into the Alabasta arc. This is a long saga, but I decided to go ahead and do it all in one go because all of the pieces just really connect in this saga, and it felt like I couldn't find a good place to split it up, so we're just gonna do it all in one go. We're gonna talk about it all, so I'm really excited for it. I got my red and yellow, red for Luffy, yellow for Sanji, so that's my way of, you know, supporting the boys. Yeah, let's go ahead and get on into this video. I am so excited. Let's review the Alabasta saga. So we start off in Reverse Mountain, where Nami really gets to kind of showcase her skills, and I love this little arc. It's very short, but the biggest thing we get to see here is just Nami showcasing how skilled she is as a navigator, how she can read the currents, how she can make these quick decisions. And I love that all the crew trust her so much that they just follow everything that she says, knowing that she's making the right calls and leading them to where they need to be. I love that. And the entrance to the Grand Line itself is so fantastic. Like, the Grand Line on the map, it just seems like this small little stretch of sea that's just kind of there, so it doesn't make it feel like it's very grand or that there's a lot there. It's just someplace hidden. But oh my goodness, when we get to the Grand Line, it is amazing. It's a lot bigger than I was expecting, and seeing it kind of portrayed out like they had so many different places to go, it made the world building of One Piece pop off, and it's just been such a treat to see that. The other thing about Reverse Mountain I love is just Luffy has this thing with animals, it seems. He meets Laboon, and Laboon, this poor whale, has just been beating himself up, hurting himself, crashing into this mountain over and over because he is waiting for his friends to get back from their journey, but they haven't returned, and he's lonely and he's sad because his friends have left him there for so many years. So he's been crashing into this mountain over and over as an attempt to try to reach them. And Luffy, upon hearing Laboon's story, picks a fight with the whale, which only Luffy would do that. So he picks a fight with the whale, with Laboon, and they scrap. Luffy wins, and Luffy's like, oh, well, if you want a rematch, you'll have to wait for me here. We'll have to make a promise so that we'll fight again later when I return. And the way he draws the pirate symbol on Laboon's head, like, it's so cute. It's like cute and ugly, but it's just so sweet at the same time. Like, because he drew it on Laboon's like head, Laboon can't crash into the rocks anymore, because if he crashes into it, it's going to like make the symbol go away, and because that's the symbol of their promise, Laboon is no longer going to be doing that. And it's just like, it's such a sweet, like, small moment for Luffy's character, but golly, Luffy has that thing, and I'm going to talk about this more in this saga. Luffy has a thing with connecting to animals that I don't understand, but he does, and it's adorable. I love that about Luffy's character, because he cares about everyone and everything. But this is also where we get our introduction to Vivi, disguised as Miss Wednesday, and her partner, Mr. Nine. And they end up on the Going Merry, and Luffy's like, yeah, sure, you can come with us. Even though they were just fighting like 5 seconds ago, Luffy is totally chill with them coming along to their next destination. So they go, and they end up going to Whiskey Peak. And Whiskey Peak is where we really start to see kind of like some of the dangers of the Grand Line kind of unfurling, with the way people can seem to be inviting, but they're really not. And the whole trap is set up that everybody seems to be drinking and being merry and eating a lot, and that's not really the case. It's a trap, and the only ones to see through it are Zoro and Nami. And Nami fakes being passed out while Zoro just is not having any of it. And Zoro really gets like a really standout moment here. He goes against 100 men, 100 people, and he wins like it's nothing. He is a force to be reckoned with. I love the moment where he's on top and they realize like, oh my gosh, it's Zoro, the former bounty hunter, and they're all like trying to look for him, and Zoro just disappeared and they're all freaking out because they can't find him, and then he's right there in the middle of everything and he's looking for himself too, like, oh yeah, what are y'all looking for? I love that moment. That was such a good fight. This is where we really get introduced to like the main antagonist of the Alabasta saga, which is Baroque works. And we get the introduction of Mr. Five and Miss Valentine. They are here to eliminate the one who knows Mr. Zero's real identity, which happens to be Vivi. And then all of it unfurls, and like Vivi is actually a princess in Alabasta, and she's been infiltrating Baroque works to get information on Crocodile, and she has Igaram with her, and they're like working together secretly. And then kind of everything starts to go to chaos, and Mr. Five and Miss Valentine are trying to kill Vivi and Igaram. And this is where we get to see a little bit of Igaram's character, where he is begging and bartering with Nami to have them help Vivi. This like, I know we set you up, I know we trapped you here, please, please, I will give you anything if you will help Vivi. If you will help the princess, I will give you anything. And Nami, of course, hearing that she might make some money off of this, is like, alright, let's do it. But then we just get this very random fight between Zoro and Luffy. I don't know how to feel about that. Because it just seemed really out of Luffy's character to do something like that. Because he wouldn't even like hear Zoro out. He wasn't listening to Zoro. He was just like, oh, I'm gonna kill you, and just was belligerent about it. And I guess it could be played for comedy, but for the most part, it really didn't fit in with Luffy's character and how laid back he normally is. Especially because he just like accepted Vivi and Mr. Nine on their ship just like a couple minutes before that and let them ride with them even though they had been fighting. So that just didn't really add up right to me. But besides that fight, it's broken up by Nami. That is when Vivi gets to tell them, hey, no, like, Crocodile is the one in charge of Baroque works. He's pulling strings. And Igaram sets off to distract Baroque works so Vivi and the others can escape. And this is when we get his death scene, per se. I will say, whenever I first saw him say, oh, I'll distract them, you go, and he took off on that ship, I thought we were just never going to see him again. I thought they were going to kill him off screen. I was like, oh, we're never going to see this person again. It was good knowing you. And then the ship blew up. But that's besides the point. That part shocked me. And it really just set the tone for what this saga was going to be. And the stakes automatically seemed to be raised a lot higher. It's like, no, these criminals, these villains, they mean business. They don't want anything, like any of their identities compromised. And now we're on their hit list. The tension went from down here to up here real quick just because of that impact scene. They get to escape, and the only ones on Baroque Works hit list now are Luffy, Nami, and Zoro. So Usopp and Sanji are kind of like unknown variables that Baroque Works doesn't know about. And I love that this kind of gets set up all the way back in Whiskey Peak, because these unknown variables that Baroque Works, that Crocodile doesn't know about specifically, becomes so important thematically down the road when we actually get into Alabasta. And I love that it was set up all the way back here. But this is also where we get to meet Miss All Sunday, Miss Nico Robin, for the first time, when she just shows up randomly on the ship and tries to offer assistance, has an eternal post that will lead them straight to Alabasta. And Luffy's just like, no, you're a bad person, so we're not going to take your advice, we're not going to take this from you, and he breaks it. Classic Luffy. That setup for Nico Robin just already puts into play that like she's not a villain, or she's not a typical villain. Like, she's not completely on his side, but she's not really on our side. She kind of operates in this like gray area, and it was set up just from that one moment where she just kind of was there to make a deal and didn't try to hurt anybody, didn't try to do anything, and then she just peaced out. But I love this little arc because there's a lot of significance to it. The fight Zoro has with the 100 men plays a major impact later on at the end of the works, like the significance of what his fight did for him and like bounty wise. It introduces our main villains. It establishes the whole unknown variable thing. It sets up a lot of world building that we know, like there are kingdoms and there's more than one kingdom. There's hierarchies, monarchies, there are royalty in the grand line in this world. So it just really just bursts the door open for this world building and lets us know that there's so many more political gambits going on than we originally thought. And then we get to Little Garden, which I did not expect dinosaurs. There are dinosaurs in One Piece. Dinosaurs. I was not expecting dinosaurs, and there's dinos. When I saw Sanji kick a T-Rex, I was crying laughing. They acted so casual about it too. They acted like they've seen dinosaurs before when they haven't, and they're just like, oh, it's food. And they're kicking dinosaurs and having a hunting competition of who can catch and kill the bigger dino. And so it's like you have like this weird world building where it's like nothing is as it seems, like anything is possible in this world. It's not just your typical like island or anything like that. And then on top of the dinosaurs, we get giants. We get Dory and Broggy. And I adore Dory and Broggy. They are fascinating characters and I love them so much in this arc. And they have a history of like they're fighting every time like the mountain erupts, or like, yeah, the volcano erupts. And they've been fighting for like 100 years and they've forgotten what they've started to fight about. And now it's just like it's all about their honor and their integrity that they're keeping on fighting like this. And I like this because it has an impact on some of our characters, like on Usopp, where Usopp was genuinely terrified to get off the boat because there's dinosaurs and there's giants, which understandably so. If I was in that world and I was just randomly on an island and I started seeing like T-Rexes and giants out of nowhere, I would be scared too. I'm right there with Usopp. But I love that Usopp has this realization once he gets to know Broggy and they kind of get to talking, and Broggy inspires Usopp and kind of reminds him of his dream to become like a brave warrior of the sea, and he sees this honor and integrity that these giants have, and it really like makes a little impact on Usopp. So I really like that character moment for Usopp because it helps him start to kind of change in the way he does things and the way he views himself and how he approaches situations. Even though it doesn't seem like there's a huge change, like it gradually changes throughout the sagas. And then we get, of course, Baroque works on the island. We have Mr. 3 and his candle wax, and Miss Golden Week with her colors trap, which is such a fascinating devil fruit, honestly. I love the idea of like colors manipulating how other people act, and I haven't seen anything quite like that since the saga. I wonder if like there's anything similar to that, or if that's just like a really specific, unique devil fruit ability. But we get them and they're trying to corral and attack the Straw Hats with the help of Mr. 5 and Miss Valentine, so they're all together causing chaos. And Nami, Zoro, and Vivi get captured because they're on Baroque's hit list. Usopp isn't captured. Luffy was KO'd by Dory because of the whole like wine situation with it exploding in Dory's mouth. But I love Zoro's attitude when it comes to like how they're trapped in the wax. And Nami and Vivi are kind of freaking out about it because they can't move, they can't go anywhere. So they're like terrified of what's gonna happen. And Zoro is so chill, so completely laid back. He is not worried at all. He's not sweating any of the details. He's just like, oh, well, whatever will happen is gonna happen. Well, it'll all work out in the end. And when he realizes, oh, if I'm gonna be trapped in wax, I might as well do a cool pose. Here, let me hold my sword up in the air. I love the different attitudes and the different dynamics but in this group, because Zoro's laid back and just really calm, cool demeanor aids this group in so many situations because he's able to keep a cool head about things. He's not stressing. He doesn't really sweat any of the details. He's just able to like calmly and collectively see everything that's going on and just be like, okay, this is what's gonna happen. This is what we're gonna do. Cool. On the other hand, you have characters like Nami and Usopp who think through everything and think about everything. They want all the details. They are not calm, cool, and collected. They are stressing out about everything. and are panicking. So it's really nice to have this like divide and this dynamic, because Nami and Usopp are definitely more of the panicky characters that get scared or worked up the easiest. And then you have Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji, who are more on the calm, cool, and collected side. So it's like a nice balance between these characters, especially in situations like these where we see how they react and how they're kind of like going through these situations like differently and then together as a group. But then Usopp, Karu, and Luffy come in and they join the fight, and Usopp ends up helping Luffy get away from the colors trap of Miss Golden Week. And I'm gonna end up talking a lot about Usopp in this arc and then in the Alabasta arc in particular. But Usopp's moment in the Little Garden arc was very impressive. Like, he's not the strongest of the group, he's not the best fighter, but even though he ended up getting beaten so badly by Miss Valentine and Mr. 3, like he gets or Mr. 5, and he gets like knocked to the ground, he is bleeding, he's injured all over. Even in those moments, because he's so quick-witted and he's such a brave guy. Like, I get he's a coward, but he's brave. It's a whole dynamic, but he is able to think of a plan to get Zoro, Nami, and Vivi out of the wax. And even though he can't physically move anymore because he's injured, he tells Karu and Luffy exactly what to do so they can carry out the plan for him. It just really showcases that Usopp really does have the capabilities to be a leader if he really like put his mind to it. And that bravery really comes through in places like this. Even though like he's still scared and he's still hurt, but he still was able to execute this plan so well because he's a really smart character. So I really liked that he was able to help free them from from Mr. 3's trap. Of course, we get Luffy versus Mr. 3, and I love this because it just so perfectly showcases how Luffy fights. And you see Mr. 3, he's trying to trick Luffy, he's trying to come up with all these gimmicks, and Luffy is able to pick him out first thing out of all the clones, and Mr. 3 is like, oh my gosh, how did you know it was me? And Luffy's like, instinct. It's a gut feeling. A great moment. I love Luffy as a character too. But then we just get Sanji is chilling. He was hunting for more dinosaurs for the hunting competition, and he had no idea any of this was even going on. Which is so funny to me. But then we see him, he finds Mr. 3's little hideout, and he goes in there right as like this transponder snail is calling. And Sanji does this throughout the rest of the saga, but he messes with Crocodile so much in the saga, and I love it. And the way he talks to Crocodile, like the way he addresses him, and still realizes like it's not a normal phone call or something going on. So he gets information from Crocodile pretending to be Mr. 3. It's so perfect. And he ends up getting an eternal pose from the Unluckies before he beats the Unluckies, so that they can go straight to Alabasta, because all of Baroque Works members are being called to Alabasta. I guess that means we need to go there. Nobody knows who Sanji is. Nobody knows that Sanji was posing as Mr. 3 in this instance, not even Crocodile. And it's just Usopp is now known to Baroque Works, but Sanji's not. It's such a cool, interesting dynamic how he is able to stay in the background and like maneuver around and move pieces around that need to be moved without him ever being spotted. And then everybody meets up again, and Nami is actually bitten by something, which ends up coming into play for the next part of this saga. A little moment that I just thought was really sweet. I don't know how much story significance it has, but Sanji giving Nami his jacket when she didn't have like any top anymore, just him giving her her jacket so that she could wear it, I thought was just really, really sweet. It's just a really sweet moment. That's all I'm gonna say. Of course, Dory and Broggy, they get back up and they decide that they're gonna help out our crew, and they help them escape from Little Garden by beating that giant goldfish thing that usually eats people on their way out of the island. And they use what's left of their weapons to defeat the fish, kind of like signifying the end of their fight because they can't fight anymore. it was just a really nice conclusion to that arc. But I love all of the significance in this arc because yes, there's so many plot points set up. You get more of Baroque works and how they work, how they're moving around. Besides like the huge character moments and huge world building moments that I've talked about, there's also a moment of like parallels between the two giants and Sanji and Zoro. Like the giants' original fight was a hunting competition of whose kill was bigger, and we see Sanji and Zoro doing the exact same thing. I love that parallel. And I also love that Nami has a little moment in this arc as well where she is starting to realize like she's not the strongest and she wants to be able to defend herself and fight alongside everyone else. But that leads us to Drum Island. I know there's like a Kobe and Helmeppo side story. It's just kind of like an update pretty much on them while they're in the Marines and they're going through training. They're still like pretty much cabin boys. They're doing all the cleaning and everything. But that little tidbit we get with them makes me believe that they're going to come into play later on in the story. So I'm excited to see if they actually make like a really big entrance again. But now going to Drum Island. So Nami is sick and she needs a doctor. Even though she's very selfless in this moment, which is such a huge thing for Nami. But she's very selfless in this moment. It's like, no, like we need to get Vivi to her kingdom. Her kingdom comes first. Don't worry about me. Just go to Alabasta. Basically, everybody just tells her, no, we're going to get you to a doctor. Like, you're our navigator. You can't get sick. We need you healthy. And I love that Nami was willing to sacrifice her own health and safety for Vivi's sake. It just really shows like how close-knit of a friendship the two had bonded. And I love that. But we get to Drum Island after like a little skirmish with Wapol on the sea. We get to Drum Island and we learn a lot more about what's happening on this island, that there's no more doctors anymore because one, of Wapol's reign of terror pretty much, and then of two, of a pirate called Blackbeard that came in and ravaged their city. I need to know more about Blackbeard. And the only doctor left is Dr. Kuroha, and she is up in the castle and she only comes down occasionally. And I love Luffy's determination to get Nami to the doctor because he looks at her and is like, hey, can you make it up the mountain? Can I get you up the mountain? And Nami puts her whole life, every part of her being, she puts in Luffy's hands. She trusts him that much, and she's like, you got this, like, I trust you, Captain, you got this, go for it. Oh, I did skip a little bit. So when they first came to the island, they were attacked by the militia. The reason I bring this up is because I love this moment because Luffy's immediate reaction after the militia attacks them first, he wants to fight back, and Vivi tells him no, like, no, you're in the wrong, we're in the wrong, we need to approach this differently, we need to be humble about this. And Luffy listens to her. I love this. Luffy actually takes the time to listen to Vivi and what she's saying, and he's like, oh, you're right, I was in the wrong, let me do this your way. And then he gets on his knees and he bows alongside Vivi. Like, it's such a cool moment for Luffy because like he does listen to other people and he is learning. But I love that moment with Luffy and Vivi because it's just like, not only is it just like a shout out to their friendship that they're building, but it's also just for Luffy's character and how he is growing as a character. And Luffy backing down is what makes Dalton welcome them into the village, and he's like, no, like, they're fine. So it was really a good call. But back to the current situation, they're getting Nami up to the mountain, and I love that while they're going, Luffy is carrying Nami and Sanji is with them. They're going up the mountain and they come across these bunnies. There's so many bunnies. But I love that Sanji tells him, he's like, you cannot fight. No matter what happens, no matter what is going on, you cannot fight. If you drop Nami, she's gonna die. Stay out of the fight, dodge and only dodge. Like, let me take care of it. You protect Nami. That is your first and only priority. And Luffy listens to Sanji, and he takes Sanji's words to heart because he understands like the consequences of what could happen if he doesn't. Even though Luffy is very much like a very sporadic and spontaneous type of person who acts on instinct, acts on impulse, but he's forcing those instincts down so he can protect his crewmate, his friend. And I love that as they're going up the mountain and they're fighting, Luffy, you know Luffy wants to fight, but every time he thinks about what Sanji says and it stops him. And then when that avalanche comes, small moment for Sanji, that Sanji like gets Luffy and Nami to safety, putting his own body on the line and getting crushed by that avalanche was really, really cool because it really shows that Sanji just is willing to do anything, just like the rest of these crew. Like, Sanji's willing to do anything for his friends, for the people he cares about. And then we get the scene where Luffy is carrying Sanji and Nami, and they find the bunnies in the snow, and one of the bunnies is buried, and like the baby bunnies try to dig it up. It's really sad. But Luffy, instead of attacking the bunny because they were just fighting, he saves the bunny and just leaves it at that. What is with Luffy and these animals? Because he saves the bunny, later on when like the Wapol and everything are trying to attack him, those bunnies protect him. I just like, it's so small, and maybe it's insignificant, maybe I'm just making a big deal of it, but I just think it's so neat that Luffy always has these interactions with these animals, like Chushu in the Orange Town arc from East Blue, like just saving something from Chushu's house, bringing it to Chushu, like forming a bond with the dog, and then the dog ends up turning around and helping Luffy escape. Like, it just kind of reminded me of that, and just it makes me know like the storytelling that Oda does is just very circular and everything connects like that. It's not something that's just like a one-off thing. It's like, no, this happens frequently. It's not out of character or anything like that. But the scene of Luffy climbing up the mountain to get to Dr. Kuroha, oh my gosh, that was the hardest thing for me to watch, was Luffy going up that mountain. Like, he is bleeding everywhere, like his hands are bleeding, he like his skin is like red and purple from frostbite, but he's not gonna let go. He doesn't let Nami go. He's holding Sanji by the teeth, and he's just climbing up this mountain, and he gets to the top. And I love this moment when he gets to the top, he's able to set them down, and Dr. Kuroha and Chopper are there, and he's like, they're my friends, you have to save them, they're my friends. I love Luffy is just like the epitome of the indomitable human spirit. Like, he just does not give up and will not give up when it comes to his dreams and when it comes to his friends. But then we get introduced to Chopper. Oh my gosh, I love Chopper. He's so adorable. The little gag of him trying to hide, but he's not really hiding, that little bit never gets old. That's always so funny for me to watch. I love Chopper. You know, of course, like, it's kind of played for comedy at first because Luffy and Sanji wake up and they're trying to eat Chopper, but it's like we get to know Chopper a little bit more, and Dr. Kuroha ends up telling Sanji and Nami about Chopper's past. Oh my gosh, Chopper's backstory is so depressing. I was bawling my eyes out. I did not think I would cry over a reindeer. I cried so much because it's like his backstory is so sad. Like, he's not accepted by anyone, like not his own kind, not the humans, no one. And then like the story with him and Dr. Hiriluk, how Hiriluk took him in and was raising Chopper pretty much, and how they were like a father and son. And when Chopper realized that Dr. Hiriluk was dying, and he went on this really, really sad and savage journey to get this plant for Hiriluk, only to find out that it was poisonous after Hiriluk ate it. But Hiriluk was such an awesome character because he was so determined to give Chopper that support, and he went out like an absolute boss when he faced Wapol and like it all blew up. the fights with like Wapol and everything when they come back to try to reclaim their kingdom. Chopper's not having any of it. I love to see Chopper's fighting, like how he has a little rumple ball, kind of developing his skills and what he can do. I also love when Wapol is trying to get rid of Hero Luke's flag at the top, and Luffy sees how like distraught Chopper is about it, and he goes up there and holds the flag in place and says, you cannot get rid of this. You're not gonna knock it down. Luffy's ability to just see through to what people really love and what they care about, what means the most to them. And he sees that and he's willing to defend it, to put his body on the line for somebody else's care, somebody else's dream. And it's just incredible to see. I loved that moment. And I love when Luffy is fighting against Wapol, that, you know, Chopper is seeing him fight. He's like, who is this person? Like, who is this man? And Sanji looks to Chopper, no, even though, like, Sanji knows his backstory. Sanji knows the connotation that Chopper has with this word. And he smiles down at Chopper and he said, oh, he's a monster. It's so good, because not only does that make Chopper see that word not as something negative, as something positive, because they're associating, like, they're not calling Luffy a monster in a bad way, in a negative way. It's a positive thing. And it just starts to shift Chopper's perspective and realize that not everybody hates him for who he is. Like, he's not hated for being different. And then of course we get, you know, Kuroha's goodbye to Chopper after Wapol is defeated and everything. I love that, with the sakuras blooming as Hero Luke's final wish of what he had worked his life for, to make the cherry blossoms bloom in snow. I loved seeing that come to light, and like them just over the entire city was beautiful. And Chopper was crying, so I cried, of course. But it was such a great way to say goodbye to Dr. Kuroha, and the way she gets to say goodbye to her son. And she starts talking about the will of D. What is the will of D? I still don't know. I don't know what the will of D is. But it bothers me because this is not the only time it comes up in this saga. It comes up again later on. But the will of D kind of concept is introduced here, though it's not really described, it's not really explained, it's just kind of there. And I want to know more about it. I want to know what that means, because Monkey D. Luffy, I want to know so badly what that's about. I love this art because we get some great character moments with like Nami, Luffy, and Sanji, and Chopper. We get introduced to Chopper. Chopper gets to join our crew. And it's also our first mention of Blackbeard, and kind of like how he's now a character kind of in the mix and kind of in the background that we're not going to see until later. And it kind of starts to show like the different types of ruling styles, with like how Vivi would rule her people versus how Wapol ruled his people. And it also introduces us to the the Reverie, the World Council meeting. Because if that's still a thing, I want to know like how those meetings come to play, because that means there are so many kingdoms within the Grand Line. Like, this place is a lot more expansive than I thought it was. Like, there are so many kingdoms, so many different people involved that we still haven't really met yet. So I want to know if that's still a thing, or if that was just like for flashback purposes. But the World Council meeting really expands the world of One Piece a lot. So I'm excited to see what that is. And I love that it was included in Wapol's flashback when he was remembering, like, or in Dalton's flashback. And then that brings us to the actual island of Alabasta. And this is where we're introduced to Bon Clay, Mr. 2. He is hilarious. This is a very odd and bizarre character, but that fits so well within like One Piece and like the type of odd characters that you get. But Mr. 2 is hilarious, and I really enjoy like how his banter and comedy really plays into our crew so well. But this also, but his getting on our ship is like a huge plot point set up, because he copies everyone's face besides Vivi and Sanji, because Sanji, of course, is not there. He's in the kitchen cooking for everyone, of course, because that's what he does. Sanji's still not there, so again, Baroque Works gets information on all of our characters, except for Sanji, who stays this unknown variable. I love it. And this is when Vivi really starts to like explain that Crocodile is taking over Alabasta by deceiving everyone. He's playing the hero, even though he's still a pirate. He's a warlord, like, so he's still a bad guy, but he's been deceiving everyone by the way he plays up to them. Because of Bon Clay, like, she realizes who Bon Clay was, and as they're going into Alabasta, she knows it's not safe for them just to go about without any sort of symbol or anything, because they need to know who's the real one. That leads them to these symbols they put on their arms with a white cloth and the X's underneath it. And then we get to Nanohana, where Luffy just is being Luffy. He just goes straight off because he's hungry. He wants some food. The only thing on his mind is food, and that's relatable. He actually ends up running into Ace, who is having a conversation with Smoker, because Smoker came to Alabasta knowing that Luffy would be there. Ace was there for business, but because he told Luffy to meet him there, even though Luffy didn't get his message. So they were all there to meet Luffy, and Luffy comes crashing in and nails Smoker and Ace and sends them flying through the wall, and then sits down and is like, okay, food time. You know, Luffy's eating and Smoker comes back up to him, and Smoker starts talking to him, and Luffy's like sweating bullets, but he's still eating. And Smoker's just like, you're coming with me. And then incites a chase, and Luffy's running, and Ace is trying to catch up to him because he knows, like, hey, that's my brother. All this chaos is starting to ensue, and I love this gag because it's such a funny bit, and it happens so often. All this chaos is happening, and the rest of the crew are kind of like hiding out, looking around like, oh my gosh, like, who would be dumb enough to do something like that? And it's Luffy. It's always Luffy. And they're just like, oh my gosh, that's our captain. We gotta go save him. And Luffy comes right over to them and drags them into the whole mess. So it just gets even more chaotic. But it's such a funny little gag that they do in this show, and I love it. It just really shows how carefree Luffy is, that he's not really stressing about anything, even though he really should be at some point. But he's just taking it easy. He's like, oh, this is fun. We're all gonna have fun together. And Ace ends up helping them out, helping them escape, and when Ace gets on the going merry with them, that's when we learn a little more about him. One, he's Luffy's brother, Portuguese D Ace. He has a D in his name too. I mean, I know they're brothers, but still, they both have a D in their name, and I want to know what that means. And he is part of Whitebeard's crew and wants to make Whitebeard king of the pirates. But he is looking for Blackbeard because Blackbeard used to be part of like his division within Whitebeard's crew, and Blackbeard killed a member and left. And Ace is pretty much on a hunt to hunt him down. So it adds a little bit more layers because, like, we know Blackbeard was on Drum Island and he caused all that devastation, and now it's like he's on the move again and Ace is chasing him. But we don't get much more information on that because Ace leaves, and that's when Vivi decides to send Karu to get like the king her letter. And then again, with Luffy and these animals, we get this random moment with these kung fu dugongs. I don't even know what to say about them. That part was so funny. Luffy makes all of these animals follow him because he beats like their leader or something like that. And now all of them want to be his apprentices and follow him around. Luffy has a thing with animals. Like, he just, I don't know what it is, but I love it. So we have this like rain-based meeting of Baroque works where like they're starting to talk about their final plans and how they're planning on taking over Alabasta, and Crocodile like revealing himself and telling everybody what their like roles are. And we get Luffy and the crew getting to Yuba with the old man in the desert who's been digging for water for 3 years because it hasn't rained in Alabasta for 3 years. I love the old man, Toto. Yeah, I love Toto because one of his connection to Vivi, how like how Koza, his son, like has a relationship with Vivi, like they're friends, they grew up together. Just how loyal Toto has been to the king, to the kingdom, and how devoted he's been to like help out the kingdom in any way he can, and how he's still in that devotion, is still digging just to get that water, no matter how many sandstorms come his way, no matter how much things are obstructed, no matter how hopeless things seem. He's always so calm and so patient and peaceful about the situation, saying, no, it's gonna rain again. Like, don't worry, the rain is gonna come. He's a really wonderful little character, and like we don't get a lot of him, but we get just a little bit, enough to kind of like know the mindset of some of these people that live in Alabasta. Like, this is the type of these are the people that Vivi wants to protect. This is the type of people Vivi wants to help. Also learn, you know, the rebel army isn't even in Yuba anymore. They're off in like Nanohana, I believe. So now it just seems like they've wasted their time going all around the desert, and Vivi is starting to feel hopeless, and she is fretting because she's trying to get back to Koza again, because she thinks if she can just talk to Koza, all of their problems will be settled. And that's when Luffy goes off on her. Like, he picks a fight with Vivi. Like, he just straight up picks a fight with her. Basically tells her, like, stopping the rebel army isn't gonna do anything. Like, unless you get rid of Crocodile, nothing's gonna change. You can't keep hoping that solving a little problem is gonna help the major problem. Like, you have to go after Crocodile. And of course this leads to a fight with Vivi and Luffy. Vivi's hitting Luffy, and Luffy hits Vivi! And she's crying because she so desperately wants to protect her people. She's doing everything in her power that she can right now, because she feels so powerless, because Crocodile has turned a lot of her people against her, or against the king, because of everything that he's been doing. So she's like, there's nothing else I can really do. I'm doing all I can. And that's when Luffy says, try putting everyone's life on the line. It's not just you, Vivi. Like, you're not the only one fighting here. You don't have to think that it's just gonna be you that has to continue to fight. Try putting all of our lives on the line. We're all here to fight for you. It's not just you. We're here too. I have a feeling I say I love this moment a lot, because there's so many moments I love in this saga, because it's my favorite saga of the one I've seen so far, and I've seen through Skypia. There are just so many amazing moments, like character moments in this, and this is one of the best ones with Luffy, and the way he encourages and breaks through to Vivi, like that she's not fighting alone. And Vivi, with this realization that she isn't alone, that everyone there is willing, more than willing, to fight for her, to fight with her, says, okay, fine, let's go after Crocodile. And that's what they decide to do. So this is where like that big Baroque works meeting is happening, and you know, they get all the information on the crew except for Sanji, and Mr. 3 shows up and kind of causes some confusion and ends up getting fed to a gator. Our crew shows up and what is it, rain dinners? Yeah, and rain dinners. And of course, Usopp and Luffy end up running into Smoker and Tashigi, which is just, the comedy in this show is, it never misses. It's always great. They realize like, oh crap, we got caught. That ends up leading to everyone but Chopper and Sanji to getting captured. Or Tashigi isn't captured, yeah, but Smoker and the others, they're all captured in a prison of Sea Prism Stone with Crocodile. I think this is like our first introduction to Sea Prism Stones and like their effects on Devil Fruit users, how it weakens them. But this is also where we get like this conversation between Vivi and Crocodile. Listen, Crocodile's a fantastic villain. I love him as a villain, but he angers me still. Like, he still makes me mad. Like, the way he talks down to Vivi when Vivi comes in to confront him and talk to him. Because the Crocodile is such a smart character. He plans ahead. He doesn't really leave things to chance. He is in full control of the situation and knows he's in full control of the situation, so he boasts about it. He brags on it. And he tears Vivi down with the words he uses. And he gives Vivi the ultimatum: either you can save your kingdom, save your people, go try to save them, or you can try to save this group of pirates. It's your choice. And he leaves laughing. His laugh. I love him, but I hate him, okay? And this is when Sanji has the biggest moment in this arc, or this saga for me, is when he calls Crocodile. And he just completely makes a fool out of Crocodile. Or when Crocodile asks who it is and he's getting irritated and Sanji just says, Mr. Prince. Oh my gosh, I love that. It's so funny because Sanji just sets Crocodile up. He lures Crocodile away. breaks the bridge so Crocodile can't easily get back, has infiltrated Rain Dinners and is able to get down to where his crew is, and he saves him. He kicks a gator in the stomach, that giant gator in the stomach, like it's nothing, and sends it flying, and ends up finding that Mr. 3 isn't dead, but like saved himself in a wax ball, and then has Mr. 3 make a key so everybody can escape. And when Crocodile finally eventually does get back, he sees everyone is gone. I love it so much. Sanji is such a smart character, and he uses all of that to his advantage, that he knows that they don't know what he looks like. He knows that he is this unknown shadow in the background that can move however he pleases. And he does so in the best way and makes Crocodile look like a fool and saves his crew. I love it so much. I love that moment for him. It's so amazing. And then of course, like once Sanji saves everyone and they leave, Zoro ends up taking Smoker with him because Luffy ordered him to. And I love these moments with Smoker and Luffy. Like they have, like, yes, Smoker's still trying to capture Luffy, but Smoker is very reasonable and he has a very set sense of justice and morality. And once Smoker realizes what's going on, he decides not to try to capture them. He knows what they're trying to do. He knows what they're up against, who they're up against. And Smoker decides to let them go. And he's actually going to go get backup so they can join in on the fight. That once Luffy realizes that Smoker's not going to try to capture him again, he's like, hell, you're really not that bad of a guy. And Smoker's just like, get out. Smoker is my favorite Marine so far. He's really the only big Marine that I've seen in the show, so I mean, I can't really, it's not really saying much, but he is my favorite. I love his dynamic. They leave, they're headed off to Alabasta, and when they get there, they're all wearing these disguises. They're all riding in on ducks, which is adorable. I love that. They're all riding in on ducks so nobody can tell who Vivi is, and Vivi tries to go to Koza to try to stop the war, and I love Vivi so much, but man, seeing her fail so many times at trying to stop this war and all the people she cares about is just so heart-wrenching. I hurt to see her hurt. And we see her fail because Baroque Works, of course, obstructs her from getting to Koza, and the war is starting. Karu ends up protecting her, and that's when they come across Bon Clay because he's taken Usopp's headgear. And Vivi knows that he's a fake because of their arm coverings, because of the bandages on their arms and the X's underneath it. She knows he's a fake because of that. So she's able to escape on Karu. And Karu is an absolute goat. I mean, he's a duck, but he's the goat because he is able to go up this like cliffside with Vivi while avoiding Mr. 2, Bon Clay. And he goes straight into the line of fire and ends up getting shot just to get Vivi up there so that Vivi has a chance to stop the war. What a great duck. Best duck ever. Oh, I actually missed a part because I was focused on the ducks. We also, while they're leaving Rain Dinners and everything, that's when we get Luffy versus Crocodile Part 1. That is the first time we see Luffy like really get beaten down. Like he got destroyed by Crocodile. Crocodile just really gave it to Luffy. And we've never seen Luffy so badly injured by any villain before that we've faced. And Luffy very well would have died had it not been for Nico Robin coming in to save him, even though she gave no explanation to why she saved him from the sand and passed him off to Pell and said, he's the one who delivered Vivi safe here, you might want to save him. Oh, it really shows like her true bits of character is coming through, that she really doesn't agree with what Crocodile's doing. She's really not on Crocodile's side. She's just, again, she's operating in this very gray area right now that no one really understands. But then we get a lot of really good battles in Alabasta. We get Sanji versus Bon Clay, and I love their fight. It's really interesting to see how two people who fight with their legs battle against one another. And even though Sanji doesn't fight against women, and that's like a little bit that's in the show, and Bon Clay figures that out and it's played for comedy, they have their moments. Sanji is smart enough to work through that, and he still defeats Bon Clay, and they have a little bit of camaraderie at the end where like they shake hands and it's like, oh, that was a good fight. And of course, like Bon Clay's like, oh, is this friendship? And then Sanji knocks him out. because of course he had to have the last hit, and he got Usopp's headgear back. Nami versus Miss Doublefinger. I really liked Nami's fight because, again, it goes back to Little Garden where she's starting to realize that she is the weaker one of the group and she wants to be able to defend herself. So she goes to Usopp to ask for help, to make her a weapon so that she can fight. But it really goes to her skills because it's like stuff with the weather and how, because she's a navigator, because she's an expert in that field, she's able to manipulate things to what she needs it to do, and that works in her favor so well. And of course there's struggles at first because this is the first time she's tried to fight with it, and it's kind of gags at first, like it's all for fun and games at first, and she has to figure out like how to use it seriously. But after that, she's able to, and I love the moment where she's fighting against Miss Doublefinger and she sticks her foot through the spikes without hesitation and says, this pain is nothing. This is nothing compared to what she's going through. And she's thinking of Vivi, like thinking of everything that Vivi has gone through. And Nami is usually, like, we've seen Nami be very selfish. We've seen her just be like obsessed with gold or anything like that. But she is super selfless in this saga because she's putting everything on the line for Vivi, because Vivi is her friend and she will do anything to help her friend from suffering any longer. Because it really just shows that Nami is Nami's growing as a character, and she's so caring. Like, she may not act like it all the time, but she's a very caring person and she cares about those closest to her. I love that fight with Miss Doublefinger because it really shows that Nami is starting to grow and develop, and she's able to fight and hold her own now. Then we have Zoro versus Mr. One. I love that fight. I love Zoro's moment when he is talking and like he realizes that Mr. One is steel, and then he's like, then I'll just become a man who can cut through steel. That's such a cool line. I love that line. I love Zoro's determination because of that promise he made to Mihawk and to Luffy, where he said he was never gonna lose again, and he is keeping that promise even if it kills him. Like, every time he goes down, every time he gets injured, he just keeps getting back up. He remembers everything his master taught him, and he's thinking through these situations because he doesn't lose his cool, he doesn't lose his head, and he's thinking through the situation and is able to come up with a way to defeat Mr. One. And I love that determination, that just stone cold perseverance and determination that Zoro has. And then we also get the very interesting fight between Chopper and Usopp versus Miss Merry Christmas and Mr. Four, where they're all fighting, and it's kind of a very tricky fight because of their devil fruit powers and whatnot. But first of all, I love Chopper in this fight because Chopper, he's still very new to this world. He's experiencing things for the first time, so this is all kind of new to him. But he is still, he blindly trusts his friends. He puts all of his hope and his faith in them. And he says, they're asking me to do this, so I'm gonna do it. I need to fight this person, so I'm gonna fight. I have to win for them because they've asked me to, because I trust them. I trust their judgment. I love that about Chopper. And then, of course, with Usopp. I've got to brag on Usopp again in this moment when he's fighting, because Usopp is such a fascinating character to me, because he seems like the one who's always yelling the loudest, the one who's crying wolf, the one who's afraid, the one who's lying. But he's such a cool character because he's one of the bravest of the bunch because of how afraid he is. He is naturally just afraid of things that the others aren't. But the fact that he's able to stand up to it, to still fight despite that fear, just stands out to me so much and makes me love his character even more. But I love in this fight particularly when Usopp is getting just beaten and he is bloody all over. He wants to call it quits so bad. He wants to throw in the towel. He wants to give up because he's so injured after taking all of those hits and everything. But then Miss Merry Christmas and Mr. Four make fun of Luffy. They make fun and laugh at Luffy's dream of being king of the pirates. And that is all it takes for Usopp to stand back up and forget about backing down. And when he tells Chopper, he said there are times a man can't back down. One of those times is when they're making fun of their friend's dreams. Like, Usopp is such a precious character. And I love that. Like, through pure grit and determination, and because he's so smart, he's quick-witted, he's able to manipulate things to his advantage when he needs to. He's able to pull out all the stops to defeat Miss Merry Christmas and Mr. Four with Chopper's help. And I got so happy for the two of them because, like, one, this is Chopper's, like, really, like, first really big fight like this, so it's, like, always good to see him win. But then for Usopp particularly, like, after everything he's gone through and, like, how he's been inspired recently, he wants to be a brave warrior of the sea. He wants to not be so afraid, and he wants to stand up for his friends. And to see him be able to do that and come out victorious is just so satisfying to me. I really, really love that. So, like, all those battles happen, and then Vivi is confronting Crocodile again in, like, the courtyard. The way he just, like, tries to crush her dreams and crush her spirit every time he talks down to her just really hurts my heart, because at times it's like things Crocodile says, it makes sense. Like, it's like, yeah, that's smart, common sense, like, yeah, I can see where you're coming. But it's also like, no, like, Vivi is such an idealistic person. Like, she wants no one to be injured. She doesn't want anybody to have to die because of something Crocodile is doing. And it's like, I want to cheer for Vivi more than Crocodile, obviously. But it's like, even with the common sense that Crocodile is saying, because he's so, like, methodical and step by step and plans everything out, it makes Vivi's dreams and this wholesome love and purity that she has so much more alluring. Like, you want her to win even more, because it's like, yes, like, ideally it would be wonderful for nobody to have to fight, for nobody to lose their life, for her to just talk to them and, like, end it before it starts. Like, that would be ideal. It just doesn't happen. And when Koza goes to try to, like, fly the white flag to get them to stop fighting, of course Baroque works, interferes, and shoots Koza, and it just makes everything get so much worse. And Vivi's trying to scream at everybody and nobody's listening to her. And then Crocodile basically rubs it in her face that no one's listening to her and throws her off the side of the building. But Luffy comes in with Pell. Luffy snatches her up while Vivi is, like, despairing at this point. Like, her spirit is about to break because she's like, no one can hear me. My voice is not being heard. It cannot reach anyone. And Luffy comes in with the reassurance again with Vivi and says, we hear you. Your voice has reached us. We're still fighting with you. We're still here with you. Luffy is just such, like, an inspiring character to be around and to, like, watch and listen to. But then we get Luffy versus Crocodile version 2 pretty much. And this time Luffy recognized that Crocodile's weakness was water, so he comes with these huge jugs of water on his back and is ready to fight. And while it takes Crocodile a little bit by surprise at first, Crocodile adapts really easily and is able to counter Luffy's attacks, and they're fighting again, and Luffy tries to become Water Luffy, which is funny because it works in a sense because it makes Crocodile underestimate Luffy, but it still isn't, like, good enough at that moment to beat Crocodile. So Crocodile ends up teaching Luffy, like, this very important lesson unintentionally, because he's, like, bragging and boasting because he's beaten Luffy twice now. But he unintentionally teaches Luffy a lesson when he talks to him about, like, the flexibility of, like, their devil fruit powers, and, like, you have to be able to, like, use it to your advantage, and that whole spiel about, like, how to use your devil fruits. And I think, and Crocodile was saying it, I doubt he was trying to actually teach Luffy anything. He was saying it because he's beaten Luffy twice yet. It's like, yeah, you can't beat me because I know all the aspects of my devil fruit powers and I've experimented with it. Like, you can't beat me. But that's not the end for Luffy, because the water falls back down on him that he had spat out at Crocodile. So he's fine. This is when they're all trying to find the bomb that is going to go off because Crocodile plans for everything. There's that going on and everybody's trying to find the bomb, and the Marines are coming in like Tashigi because Smoker had talked to Tashigi and said like, hey, go there and decide when you get there with what you see what to do on your own, like follow your own sense of justice, which I love Tashigi and Smoker's dynamic. I really do. So we have like them entering the mix. We have Cobra being taken by Robin down to where the poneglyph is, and this is our first introduction to poneglyphs. Crocodile, of course, is trying to find it for like the weapon Pluton so he can use it to just destroy everything, but Robin is looking for something different, and she ends up betraying Crocodile and ends up getting stabbed because of it, even though she still doesn't give him the information he wants. In the battles, we see the Marines starting to side with the pirates as they're trying to like stop the bomb before it goes off. And I love it because it's so funny, because the whole bit of Zoro being lost is hilarious and I love seeing it happen. But how like he's on his way trying to find the bomb and the Marines are just like, look dude, we knew your sense of direction was bad, but oh my gosh, you're supposed to go that way. And he ends up at the bomb because of their help, and they end up getting to stop the bomb with Vivi's help. But because, like I said, Crocodile plans ahead, he's a very smart villain, there's a timer on the bomb. So it wouldn't have mattered if they had cut off, they'd stopped the fuse or anything, it's gonna go off anyways. But then we get Pell's sacrifice where he takes the bomb up into the sky, and Vivi's expression when that happens just breaks my heart, because it just, she's lost so much. She's had so many losses in this saga. She still continues to go forward, and then seeing her look down and realize that not even the bomb going off in the sky has stopped the fighting, and she's just asking everyone to please stop fighting, like stop fighting, over and over and over, and they're not listening to her and no one's listening to her. It just breaks my heart for someone who loves and cares so deeply about every person in her country, to see someone she's grown up with and have a deep connection to die like that, and then nobody's even like blinking an eye on it, nobody's paying attention, and her voice is still not reaching them. It's just so gut-wrenching. But then we get Luffy vs. Crocodile, part 3, and oh my gosh, blood. Luffy deciding to use his blood is super creative, but it's also terrifying because he's willing to take all these extra hits to get more blood to fight against Crocodile with. I love it because, once again, Crocodile's like 2-0 at this point, so he's underestimating Luffy. He's not taking Luffy very seriously. Luffy does not back down. He keeps getting up no matter what Crocodile throws at him. No matter when Crocodile poisons him, Luffy still gets back up because of this determination to help Vivi. The way Luffy fights for the ones he loves, the ones he cares about, is so incredible, because he tells Crocodile she only tries to do this alone. Like she's the first one to sacrifice herself and put herself on the line, and she doesn't expect anybody else to do it. She loves this country so much. If this is the country she loves so much, she should be smiling more. And because Luffy wants to see Vivi smiling, he wants to see her happy, he doesn't want to see her suffering anymore, he keeps getting back up no matter what it does to his body, no matter what it does to anything else. He's not gonna go down until he can help Vivi. There's a lot of determination in these Straw Hats, and Luffy is like king of determination, and he just keeps going, and he ends up beating Crocodile, sending him through bedrock. It goes all the way up in the sky. Everybody starts to see like, oh, that's Crocodile. And then the rain starts to fall. And once the rain falls, everybody finally stops fighting. They're finally listening, and Vivi's voice is heard, and it breaks through to everyone, and everyone sees her and they're listening to her. And she says, don't worry, all of our nightmares are over, because she saw Crocodile, and seeing him defeated, she knew exactly who had done that, and she knew she could rest easy now. Igaram comes back with the little boy who saw Bon Clay and like clears up that misunderstanding. Cobra comes back with Luffy and delivers him to the Straw Hats. I love that moment where they're all taking him and they seem very like laid back about the whole thing, and Vivi's coming up there to thank him, and they're like, no, you go ahead, we'll meet you at the palace, we'll catch up to you later, you have things to do. And as soon as they leave, they all just fall and they collapse because they are so totally exhausted. One of the parts that sticks out most is when they're describing the events of the battle and it pans to our crew and it says the battle that will never be told, because they did all of that work for one person. It wasn't for the kingdom, it wasn't for all the people in the kingdom, it was for Vivi and Vivi alone. And all of that work, all of the pain that they went through, the fights, everything is never going to be told, because no one can say that pirates saved the kingdom. That, and enforces it with Tashigi when she sees the Straw Hats. They're all down for the count, and the other Marines are like, hey, let's capture them now, like they're here for the taking, let's get them. And she forbids anybody to touch them because she recognizes what they've done, and she recognizes that they're not going to be acknowledged for any of it. Crocodile is arrested, and then we get this really interesting conversation with Tashigi and Smoker of how she was frustrated because she was helpless, that she couldn't do anything but trust these pirates and put her faith in them in that moment, even though Smoker said to trust in your own justice, do what you believe is right, and she did, but it still frustrates her to no end. And that moment when she walks past him and he can just tell, and he's like, if you're that upset that you're gonna cry, then work to get stronger. And we see Tashigi crying, and she's saying, yes, I will. Oh my goodness, I love that moment. But then we get a little bit of levity with like the humor and recovery while, you know, the guards are talking to the Marines and they're talking about like harboring pirates and everything, and the guard's like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. As Sanji and Usopp are walking by and they're like, hey, and the guards are like, oh hey, yeah, go ahead. And then we get, you know, the comedy of like Luffy waking up and like the big feast that they're having, and at first like the guards are like, oh my gosh, like what are these guys like doing? They're so like rowdy, they're so just out there. But then they all end up laughing because this group just has such a natural charisma to them that draws people in, and it's so infectious. Cobra's laughing and Vivi's laughing. They're all just having a good time because they've won. And then we get like the scene in the bath where Cobra actually formally thanks them because he knows he can't outside, like formally while he's king, he can't thank the pirates for what they've done. He says, as a father and as a citizen, thank you for what you've done. Because when Igaram tries to like stop him, he says there's no such thing as a naked king. And he takes the opportunity to thank him because he knows it's going to be his only chance to do so. They have to leave because they don't want to endanger Vivi or Cobra or the rest of the kingdom. And they find Bon Clay with the Going Merry like on a different shore because they didn't need it captured by the Marines, so Bon Clay moved it. He's a very bizarre character, but I really love him. He's hilarious. And I like that he's inspired by Luffy as they're like setting the sea, and he's like wanting to escape the Marines with them. And Luffy and them are like, no, we can't, we're waiting. We're waiting for our friend, we have to pick her up. We told her we'd meet her at noon. And Bon Clay's like really inspired by that and ends up sacrificing his own boat and his own crew to give them a chance to escape so that they could go meet Vivi. And it's just bizarre because when you first meet Bon Clay, like after you know he's part of Baroque Works, you wouldn't expect him to be like teaming up with our guy, or like our group. I really hope we see Bon Clay again. And then we get the goodbye to Vivi, and this part made me cry so much. I love that, you know, like Vivi ends up going to the place that they told her to meet because they said, hey, if you want to join our crew, you can. We'll be waiting for you here. You get to make the choice. But of course, like Vivi is a princess. She has obligations to her kingdom. She just fought so hard to free her kingdom and to stop the civil war that was going on within it. You know she's not going to leave any of that But she goes to meet them anyways to give them a proper goodbye. And she tries to explain it as best she can while she's on speaker, even though nobody knows what she's talking about or who she's talking about, and she's saying goodbye to them. But at this point, the Marines have noticed the Going Merry, so they're going to be coming after them. When Vivi says, if our paths ever cross again, will you still consider me your friend? And of course, Luffy's first instinct is to be like, of course we will, we're gonna be friends forever. But they stop him from saying anything because they're like, if the Marines think she is affiliated with us, and it's gonna get her in trouble. But Luffy cannot stand the fact that he would just leave without saying anything to her. So they come up with the idea of showing the X's on their arms, and they all raise their hands and they're showing the X's on their arms to Vivi. When I tell y'all, I was sobbing, and I had my own arm in the air. Like I had my arm in the air too with them while I was crying. And I love that moment. That is my favorite moment in the entire saga, because it symbolizes everything that they've worked for, everything that they've done together. It symbolizes their friendship. It was such a powerful moment, and I loved it so much. It meant everything. And then Vivi and Karu raising their arms and showing that they still had the X's on their arms as well, symbolizing that friendship and knowing that as long as that mark was there, they were always gonna be friends. That kind of closes off the Alabasta arc, except we get this random introduction to Nico Robin, and she's on the ship and she says, hey, let me join your crew. And Luffy's like, okay. And at first the others are like, no. Like, no, you're not just gonna let her join us. Robin's basically like, I was ready to die and I wanted to die and you saved my life. How dare you? So now you gotta pay for it to let me join your crew. And Luffy's like, makes sense. All right, you're part of the crew. It's really gonna be interesting to see like her dynamic with them moving forward. What a saga though. It's such an amazing saga, and one I will definitely be like rewatching, and I'm gonna be reading it soon because I've started the manga, and because I've listened to you guys' advice, I am reading the manga, so I am trying to catch up to where I am currently in the anime. Because I've watched anime so much and I kind of grew up with anime, I am still gonna watch the One Piece anime to experience it that way, but I am also going to be reading the manga because I do want to experience what it's like in the manga and kind of see like how certain scenes are adapted and played out and how things are like originally in the manga. So I'm going to be doing both. I want to experience both, but I am reading the manga, so I cannot wait to read the Alabasta saga in the manga because I know that's going to be amazing. From what I've seen so far, this is by far my favorite saga so far. And I love it. I love the characters. I love all the character moments. I love all the impact on the plot that this has, because it not only expands the world so much, it kind of weaves together these storylines from the beginning of the saga to the end of the saga. And I trust Oda so much with his storytelling because he does it so cleverly and it's very unique in the sense that I know I'm gonna get answers to the questions I have. It's just a matter of when. So it's like the whole like Will of D or Blackbeard or political mess of like the World Council or the government and the corruption going on with the government of like how they're covering up everything for Crocodile, giving Smoker the promotion even though he doesn't want one. Like all of that I know is gonna be expanded on and I'm gonna get answers to later on. I don't have to worry about that because of how Oda crafts his storytelling, because if he can weave plot points from the beginning of East Blue and like connect them to the Alabasta saga, and like in the Alabasta saga like all these different plot points that are woven together that get answered and get completed and are like circular storytelling, if that's gonna happen, I know that's gonna follow through the rest of the One Piece journey. And I'm not like, I'm stressed because I want to know what happens, but I'm not stressed that I'm not gonna get an answer. Like it's just a win, and I'd rather it be sooner than later because I really want to know what the Will of D is, because Robin mentions it again. Nico Robin mentions the Will of D again when she's talking to Luffy, or when she's talking about Luffy, and I just want to know what that means. And I'm interested to learn more about Robin's character because of the whole like poneglyph situation. She wants to learn like the true history of the world. I know that was purposeful, like the true history, like that phrasing was purposeful. Because Oda doesn't just say anything without meaning it. So it's like, I want to know how that's going to come into play. I want to know like how the poneglyphs are like connected to everything and what they really mean. Like if it's just weapons that they're referring to or like what else there is. I have more questions than answers from this saga, but I'm okay with it because the saga was fantastic. We had a great villain this saga. And this is the first time we've really seen Luffy struggle against a villain and lose against a villain. So it's really nice to show some like power scaling, that there are people more powerful objectively than Luffy is, than our crew is, and that they're gonna have to continue to get stronger as they go through the Grand Line if they're gonna make it. That kind of has stakes right there. So the fake out deaths were not my favorite, but I'm hoping that it doesn't kill the tension. Like there's still enough to the plot and to like the struggle and the storyline that it doesn't completely kill it for me. I'm wondering if that's gonna change or if there's just gonna be a lot of fake out deaths continuing going forward. If that's like a thing Oda does. I'm not sure yet. And Zoro and Luffy get new bounties. Zoro gets a bounty because of everything from like Whiskey Peak and him defeating Mr. One. Luffy gets a new bounty because he defeated Crocodile. So that is my review of the Alabasta saga. I talked so much. I hope y'all have enjoyed this saga. If there's any like big thing I missed or I didn't cover, let me know. I probably will, like going forward, I may be cutting up the sagas into like smaller portions because there'll be so much to do. So the Skypiea saga might be the last like review I do as like a whole saga. I might do the others in sections after that. Thank y'all so much for sticking with me through this review. It is a long one. There's so much to say about this saga. It holds a really special place in my heart already. I really hope we see Vivi again in the future, as well as like Bon Clay. Thank y'all so much for watching this video, and I will see y'all in the next one. Bye!